You step up to the first tee. Same grip, same stance, the same swing you've trusted for 40 years, and the ball drops 30 yards shorter than it used to. Not once. Every single round. I refused to accept that. So I started digging. Here's what I found, and it stopped me cold. The distance you lost is not gone. Most of it was never about strength in the first place. Most of it is sitting in a place nobody sells you, hidden inside numbers that equipment shops have quietly stopped explaining to men our age. I trace this all the way back to a rule written into the books in 2004, a device sitting in fitting studios that measures something your pro never mentions, and one sports scientist whose research proves you can buy back yards you thought aging took forever. That's where this trail ends, and I promise you, it's worth the walk. And before you think this is only for younger players still swinging fast, let me stop you. What I found works best for a slower swing. It was practically built for it. It started on a Tuesday in October, ninth hole of a beat-up municipal course outside of town, cold enough that my hands ached on the grip. I watched a man who had to be 75, thin as a rake, outdrive me by 25 yards. I outweigh him by 60 pounds. I hit the gym, he walks with a slight limp, and he flushed it past me like I wasn't there. I stood on that tee box and I thought, something is wrong with what I believe about distance, and I couldn't let it go. So the first thing I chased was a single question. Where does yardage actually come from? Because I always assumed it was muscle. Swing harder, hit farther. That's what every one of us was taught, standing next to our fathers on a driving range. But the more I read, the more that fell apart. Distance off the tee comes down to one number the professionals call ball speed. Not swing speed, ball speed. And ball speed is your swing speed multiplied by something with a strange name, smash factor. It's the efficiency of the strike, how much of your swing actually transfers into the ball. The best possible number with a driver is right around 1.5, meaning if you swing the club at 80 miles an hour and you catch it perfectly in the center of the face, the ball leaves at 120. Now here's where my stomach dropped. Most amateur men our age are not swinging at a smash factor of 1.5. We're down around 1.4, sometimes lower, and that gap, that little decimal, is worth more than any gym session, because losing 1/10 the smash factor on an 80-mile-an-hour swing costs you around 8 miles an hour of ball speed, and every single mile an hour of ball speed is worth roughly 2 yards on the ground. Do that math with me. 8 miles an hour of ball speed, gone, just from missing the center of the face by half an inch. 16 yards, vanished. Not because you got weak, because your contact drifted and nobody ever told you that's where your driving distance was leaking out. That skinny 75-year-old wasn't stronger than me. He was more efficient than me. He was finding the center of the face, and I was catching it low on the heel, round after round, watching my yards bleed away and blaming my age. But that only raised a bigger question. If contact matters that much, why does modern equipment feel like it stopped helping us? Because I remembered something. 20 years ago, when I switched to a new driver, I picked up real distance overnight. The last 3 drivers I bought, barely a whisper. And that, it turned out, was not an accident. Somebody made a decision, and it changed everything for players like us. So I went looking for when drivers stopped getting longer, and the trail led me somewhere I never expected. Back to a workshop in 1979 and a man named Gary Adams. Gary Adams took out a loan against his house, rented a building across from a Massachusetts cow-pasture, and started making golf club heads out of metal instead of persimmon wood. Everybody thought he was crazy. Wood was tradition. Wood was what a driver was. But that hollow metal head did something wood never could. The thin face flexed at impact and sprang back, launching the ball off the club like a trampoline. That company became tailor-made. And that little trampoline effect, that spring, is where the modern distance boom was born. Then in 1991, Callaway released a driver with a head so much bigger than anything before it that they named it after a famous cannon. The Big Bertha. Bigger head, bigger sweet spot, more forgiveness, more spring. Through the 1990s, Engineers made the faces thinner and thinner, and the ball flew farther and farther, and every golfer alive was buying yards straight off the shelf. And then it stopped, on purpose, because the men who govern golf watched the ball flying too far and decided to draw a line in the sand. In 2004, they wrote a limit into the rules. They call it the spring-like effect, measured by something with the dull name of characteristic time, capped at 239 microseconds. In plain English, they measured exactly how much your driver face is allowed to flex and spring back, and they froze it. They said, this far and no farther. They also locked the head size at 460 cubic centimeters and capped how forgiving the head is allowed to be at a number they call moment of inertia, frozen at 5,900. Sit with what that means. Since roughly 2004, by rule, the fastest legal driver face has been essentially the same. The driver you buy in 2026 cannot legally spring the ball off the face any harder than a driver from 2005. That overnight jump in distance you remember? It is never coming back from a new club because the law of the game forbids it. I felt cheated when I read that. All those upgrades, all that money, chasing a spring that had already been capped before I even started buying new drivers. But here's the twist that pulled me deeper into this whole thing. If the face is frozen, and the size is frozen, and the forgiveness is frozen, then what exactly has every driver company been selling us for 20 years? Because they've been selling us something. And once I understood what it really was, I understood why seniors specifically have been getting the wrong club handed to them. So let me tell you what actually changed, because this is where the 5 things that matter for a slower swing finally come into focus. If the ball speed ceiling is locked, the game shifted entirely to what happens after impact, the launch. And launch is decided by 3 things a fast young pro can ignore, but a senior absolutely cannot. Weight, loft, and where the sweet spot sits. The first is weight, and this is the one I'd been ignoring my whole life. The driver I was swinging weighed about the same as the one I bought in the 1990s, because I never thought to check, but a slower swing needs a lighter total club to move it faster. Modern shafts made for our swings can weigh 40 to 50 grams, where the old steel and heavy graphite ran 70, 80, even 90. Drop 30 grams off the club, and for a lot of older players, you'll pick up 2, 3, even 4 miles an hour of swing speed for free just from being able to move the thing faster. Remember, every mile an hour of ball speed is worth around 2 yards. Nobody in that pro shop ever weighed my driver against my strength. They just sold me whatever was on the wall. The second is loft, and this is the big one, the one that makes seniors furious when they finally understand it. For decades, we were taught that low loft equals distance. The tour players use 8 and 9 degrees, so a real man's driver should be low too, right? Wrong. Dead wrong for us. A ball needs a certain launch angle and a certain amount of spin to carry its maximum distance in the air, and a slower swing does not generate enough of either on its own. A fast tour swing creates its own spin and launch, so those players lower the loft to take spin off. But when a man swinging 85 miles an hour plays a 9-degree driver, the ball comes out low and dying, drops out of the sky, and rolls into the first patch of rough. That same man on a 14 or 15-degree driver launches it high, carries it in the air where the yards actually live, and gains distance he'd sworn was gone forever. We were sold low-loft tour drivers to feel like the pros, and it quietly cost us carry for years. The third is the sweet spot. And remember where this started, with smash factor and finding the center of the face. The newest drivers built for our end of the game move weight to the back and toward the heel to do 2 things at once. They make the club more forgiving on off-center hits, so your bad strikes don't punish you as hard, and many of them tilt the club to fight the slice most of us fight. A ball that starts straight instead of leaking right carries farther and finishes in the fairway. That's the third yard saver, and it's baked into the head shape itself. So when you hear about the top drivers to look at for 2026, forget the marketing names for a second and listen for these 3 signals. Is it built on a light shaft made for a moderate swing? Does it come in a higher loft, 12 degrees and up, without the salesman flinching? And is it a high forgiveness, draw-leaning head that helps a slice and rewards a strike that isn't dead center? A club that checks all three, whether it wears the name of the big Cannon company, or the one from that Massachusetts cow-pasture, or the Arrow brand, or the Snake brand, or the Ball company that finally started building forgiving heads, that club will hand a senior back more yards than any amount of swinging harder ever will. But here I hit the wall that stops most men reading this, because I know exactly what you're thinking. That's fine for a fellow with money to burn on a $500 driver and a fitting session. And that's the exact moment my whole investigation turned, because I found something that costs nothing that you can do with the very driver already sitting in your garage this weekend, and it might be the biggest yard saver of them all. That's where this ends, and it's the part I'd been chasing the whole time. But before I get there, I have to tell you something. Everything I dug up through this investigation, the smash factor math, the 2004 rule, the angle of attack fix, and the speed science coming up next, I pulled it all together and built it out fully in a series of guides called First Foundations, Hidden Leverage, and the Complete System. If you want the whole framework in one place, laid out step by step without the YouTube algorithm deciding what you see next, those books are linked in the description below. A lot of men in this community have been working through them quietly, and the comments they leave tell me the angle of attack section alone is worth the read. Now, back to the name I finally landed on, and this is the part that changes everything. I want to talk to you directly now, the one who just did the math on a new driver and felt your stomach sink. This next part is for you specifically. You do not need to buy a single thing to use it. You already own everything it requires. And when I found the numbers behind it, I actually laughed out loud, alone at my kitchen table, because it was so simple and I'd been doing the opposite my entire life. It comes down to two words: angle of attack. It means whether your driver is moving slightly downward or slightly upward at the exact moment it meets the ball. And this is the number that skinny 75-year-old had figured out that I hadn't. Most amateurs, especially those of us taught to hit down and through the ball, come into the driver moving downward, hitting down on it the way you would an iron. But a driver is the one club in the bag where that is exactly wrong. The ball is on a tee sitting up in the air, begging you to catch it on the way up. When you hit down on it, you add spin and kill launch, and the ball climbs, stalls, and falls. When you catch it moving upward instead, you launch it higher with less spin, the exact flight a slow swing needs, and the ball carries and carries. Here are the numbers that made me put the book down and stare at the wall. Launch monitor testing has shown that for a player swinging around 90 miles an hour, changing from hitting down about 5 degrees to hitting up about 5 degrees can add well over 20 yards of total distance. Same swing speed, same effort, same body, same club. More than 20 yards, purely from the direction the club is traveling at impact. That is not strength, that is not equipment, that is free. And how do you do it right now with what you own? 3 things, and none of them cost a penny. First, tee the ball higher than you do now. Most of us tee it far too low. Tee it so that half the ball, the top half, sits above the crown of the driver when the club rests on the ground. A high tee physically encourages the club to reach the ball on its way up. Second, move the ball forward in your stance, up off the inside of your lead foot, your front heel. The club head is rising by the time it reaches that point in the swing arc, so a forward ball position lets you catch it going up. Third, and this is the little feeling that ties it together, set up with your trail shoulder, the one farther from the target, a touch lower than your lead shoulder, and feel like you are swinging up and out toward the sky after impact, not chopping down into the turf. High tee, ball forward, swing up. That's it. No purchase, no fitting, no new driver, just a change in how you meet a ball that's already sitting on a tee waiting for you. I changed those 3 things and picked up more distance in one bucket of range balls than I had from the last 2 drivers I bought, and I own every word of that embarrassment. But even with the club moving up and the ball teed high, one question was still gnawing at me, and it's the one that finally cracks this whole thing wide open, because everything I'd found so far was about efficiency, squeezing more out of the swing speed I already had. And that's real, and it works. But it dodged the thing we all secretly believe is a life sentence, that the raw swing speed itself, once it starts fading with age, is gone for good. That's the belief that keeps a man quietly accepting shorter and shorter drives every year. And that belief, it turns out, is wrong. The name I finally landed on was a sports scientist named Sasho McKenzie, a biomechanics researcher who has spent years studying how the golf swing actually generates speed. And what his work and the work built around it showed is a thing that sounds impossible until you understand it. You can train your body to swing faster at any age, not by getting stronger, but by teaching your nervous system to move quicker. And the way you do it is almost backwards from everything instinct tells you. It's called overspeed training. Here's the idea. Your brain has a built-in speed governor. It will only let your muscles fire as fast as it believes is safe and normal for you. Over years, as we play a little less and swing a little easier, that governor creeps slower and slower, and your body simply forgets how to move fast. Overspeed training resets the governor. You make swings with something lighter than a driver, so you can move it faster than you've ever moved a club, and then you make swings with something slightly heavier. You alternate light, fast, then heavier, light, fast, then heavier. And by forcing your body to move faster than it's used to, over and over, you teach the nervous system that this new higher speed is safe, the governor lifts. And the research on this is not a fantasy. Studies on these overspeed protocols have shown golfers gaining around 5% swing speed in a matter of weeks. Think about what 5% means for a man swinging 85 miles an hour. That's better than 4 miles an hour of swing speed. Run it through everything we've learned. 4 miles an hour of swing speed at a good smash factor is roughly 6 miles an hour of ball speed, and at 2 yards per mile an hour, that is around a dozen yards. Recovered from a body that a doctor would tell you is only getting older. And here is the part that made my chest tighten when I realized it. The part that makes this a true forgotten secret. You do not need to buy the fancy training sticks to do this. Men have been doing crude versions of overspeed work for 100 years without knowing the science behind it. You can take an old driver, flip it upside down, and grip it down on the shaft near the head. Now you're swinging the light end. Swing it as hard and as fast as you physically can, making a loud whoosh through the air where the ball would be 10 times. Then flip it back and make 5 normal swings, trying to feel that same speed. Do that a few times a week. You are running the exact protocol that Sasho McKenzie's research validated with a club you've owned for 20 years in your own backyard for free. Let me lay the whole thing back out, because now the mystery is solved and every piece clicks together. That 75-year-old man outdrove me, not because he was strong, but because he was doing, by instinct or by accident, the 4 things I spent all this time chasing down. He caught the ball in the center of the face for a high smash factor. He caught it moving upward off a high tee for a better launch. He was probably playing more loft than his pride wanted him to. And somewhere along the line, his body had kept its speed while mine had let the governor creep down. None of it was muscle. All of it was knowledge that used to be common and got buried under 20 years of being told the answer was a new driver on the wall. That's the thing that really lit a fire in me by the end of this. The reason none of us heard the simple stuff. Think about it. There's no money in telling you to flip your old driver over and swing it in the backyard. There's no monthly bill in teaching you to tee the ball higher. There's no $500 sale in explaining that your swing speed governor can be reset for free. The whole machine that surrounds this game is built to sell you the one thing the rules froze back in 2004, the face speed of a new driver, while the 4 things that would actually give you your yards back, the strike, the launch, the loft, and the train speed, got quietly left off the sales pitch because you can do every one of them yourself without spending a dime. The equipment does matter. I won't lie to you. A light shaft and the right loft and a forgiving head are real yards. And if you're going to buy a driver in 2026, now you know exactly what to demand and exactly what to ignore. But the biggest yards, the ones that felt gone forever, those were never for sale. They were sitting in a rule book, on a launch monitor, and in a biomechanics study, waiting for somebody to connect them for you. So here's what you actually walked away with today. You didn't lose your distance to age. It was scattered across 4 places nobody bothered to show you, and now you can walk out to any tee box and start collecting it back with the clubs and the body you already have. You're the kind of person who refuses to just accept the shorter drive and the bigger bill. You'd rather understand how the thing actually works and fix it yourself, the way people did before every answer came with a price tag. That's exactly who this is for. Now, I want to hear from you, and I need you to actually do this, because this crowd almost never speaks up. Tell me one thing in the comments. What loft is on the driver in your bag right now? Just the number. I want to see how many of you are stuck on a 9 or 10 degree tour driver that's been costing you carry for years, because I'll bet the answers are going to shock all of us. Go write it down right now before you forget. And if you want to keep pulling these buried threads with me, the ones convenience culture paved over and forgot, come along. This isn't about a channel. It's about a growing bunch of us who are done paying monthly for what our grandparents did for free. Because the next thing I'm chasing is even stranger. There's an old range ball secret about how the golf ball you practice with is quietly lying to you about your real distance. And once I found where that trail leads, I couldn't believe how long it's been fooling every one of us. That one's coming next, and you're going to want to be here for it. Remember that center face contact fix we talked about? Inside my membership, the Practical Wisdom Circle, I pick up right where this video stopped and walk you through the whole thing. And you can ask me your own question a real person answers. Me, myself, never a machine. You won't be doing this alone. You belong here with folks like you. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen. Cancel anytime. One click.